Joining me now is Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, a Democrat of Minnesota. You talked today about revenge, and it seems quite clear, just as a factual matter of the history here, that's true. Why you? Why this three? Do you have an understanding of how this category of, can't sit on the committees was drawn?
It's a really good question, but my hint is that it's probably to appease Trump. If you remember when I was running for the Minnesota House and Trump was running for president, he came to Minnesota and specifically talked about how Somali refugees should not enter our state. And certainly we should not have any representation in government. Marjorie Taylor Greene, if you remember, in 2019, after I got sworn in, was in Congress talking about Muslim invasion. When you think about Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell, these are two people who have led the impeachment efforts against Trump, who he also singled out. If you think about the way in which these people have been vengeful, this sort of revenge and picking the three of us makes sense. It feeds their base. It responds and appeases their donors. Obviously, McCarthy has been very specific in my case that this was a promise that he made to his donors. He has publicly said, and he said it at a conference to his donors, that he's fulfilling the promise that he's made, which in itself should be an ethical, right, for a speaker, for a leader to exchange dollars in removing a duly elected member from a committee that they have history in, that they have served on, and have done work that is celebrated not just across the country, but the world.
Are you heartened at all or encouraged by the fact that there are already two members on the record saying, on the Republican side, saying they won't go along with this? Do you have any hopes of perhaps persuading Republican colleagues that this is a bad way to vote?
I don't know where the votes will end up if he does bring the resolution to the floor after I am appointed to the committee. But what the two that have been public have spoken about is the way in which it would be seen hypocritic for them to have voted against the removal of Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar and now take a vote to remove a member in the minority when their objection was always to say that that's the responsibility and the work within the conference and the majority should not abuse its power in that way. Now, obviously, the cases are very different. We removed those two for the direct threats to their colleagues and the danger they were putting our lives in. And my case, obviously, it's about political differences. It's, again, about the appeasement of political donors. And it's certainly about bringing on revenge for all the times that we've stood up against a corrupt president.
You know, we were looking today to find someone who's making some substantive case against you, and we couldn't really come up with it. Like it's just sort of gesturing to you. I'm going to play what Steve Scalise said, which I guess glancingly I think pertains to you, but I want to at least give you a chance to respond to the extent there's a substantive case being made against you being on this committee. Here's what Steve Scalise said.
If people have shown a propensity to either espouse anti-American, anti-Semitic views, do things that have put themselves in a compromised position, including lying about classified information, it raises serious questions. And again, those are very unique committees. You get access to a lot of classified information.
So I think he's saying that you have a propensity to either espouse anti-American, anti-Semitic views. Would you like to respond?
I mean, obviously, the anti-American charge is a dog whistle, right? Many of these people obviously don't believe an immigrant, a Muslim, a Black woman born in Africa should not be in Congress, and they certainly don't believe that I should have the opportunity to shape the foreign policy of our country that has obviously touched my life and had made it possible for me to have the life that I have today in creating the refugee status that allowed for my family and I to enter this country. But if you go back to the way in which Scalise was speaking about, you almost can hear the hypocrisy. And, you know, Adam Schiff today said it almost chokes you in the throat. He speaks about anti-American rhetoric or anti-Semitism. You have a man who himself has been accused of anti-Semitism. You have McCarthy, who himself has been accused of anti-Semitism. You have Emmer, who is the whip of the House, who has been accused of anti-Semitism. And then you have somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who said 9/11 was an inside job, who is now going to be on the Homeland Security Committee that oversees our national security. This is a person who obviously doesn't believe Muslim Americans should have access to the Constitution in the same ways everyone else does. Someone who doesn't even understand the Constitution and what it means for those of us who get sworn in on a Quran having the right to be able to do so. If the charge is that people who he says that spew anti-Semitism and anti-American rhetoric should not be sitting on committees, then there are so many people on the Republican side that should certainly be stripped of their committees and should probably not be in Congress either.
Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, final question for you, just briefly. Are you confident you will have all Democrats with you should this come to a floor vote?
Yeah, it's been really incredible and heartening to see the unity in which Democrats have stood together to try to, in the last two terms, appoint me to this committee and will do so again. I am incredibly grateful and thankful to my Democratic colleagues.
All right, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, thank you very much for joining us this evening. I really appreciate it.